Welcome back to Off the Curb. It's been a crazy week, especially for a Michigan State guy living in the heart of Michigan country during Michigan OSU week. We're talking to a lot of Michigan people, and I had to go to the other side. I am an honorary Buckeye this week and will be the strongest honorary Buckeye on Saturday. One of the ultimate Buckeye legends, A.J. Hawk, straight out of Columbus. Welcome to the show, A.J. Hawk, OSU legend. Appreciate making time for us today, man. I know you're so busy with your media career.
Oh, hey, thanks, man. Good to join you. It's a great week too to come on here and talk with you. So it's fun to be around Columbus right now during this Michigan week.
Despite my disdain for the University of Michigan's athletic department and all their programs and all their teams, I do think for college football it's better when these two teams are good and this game is at this level. And we saw a little bit of it last year. I think it's heightened this year with 11-0 versus 11-0. I don't know if you're a huge gambling guy, AJ. The odds markets, I mean, you can throw up the DraftKings, Ben. I think it's still sitting at around 7.5. Yep, there we go, 7.5 coming into Saturday. Sounds about right. That's where I would put it, I would say. I think that's fair. What's sort of your pulse on the field down there in Columbus? Are the Buckeyes confident going in? The fan base seems to be a little bit quieter than in years past, a little bit of a humbling maybe last year. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're optimistic, but they're cautious at the same time. I mean, last week, I know both of them, Michigan had a test that came kind of down to the wire, and Ohio State did as well against Maryland. So the fact that they're both undefeated coming in, I'm very happy for that. I think it just adds that much more to the game. But I think last year maybe surprised some people at Ohio State. Just, they went down there and just Michigan played unbelievable, and Ohio State didn't play very well. That's just how it is. And they out physicaled them and everything. So I think the Ohio State fans and players and coaches and everybody, they've been hearing it for a year now that they how that game went. I think they're just anxious the most. Like, that's what I feel the most from any kind of players, any kind of fans, anyone that's just looking forward to this weekend. Yeah, like, oh, cool, Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's great. But then Saturday, how are we going to do? Like, that's the first thing people ask me when I'm out coaching my daughter's basketball or doing other things. Like, everyone wants to know what I think is going to happen. I'm like, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I think both teams are great. Let's see who plays best on Saturday.
It's interesting because both teams are obviously 11-0, so they're perfect on the point that matters the most. But there's a perception, certainly around Michigan, because that's the stuff I hear every day. Yes, they're 11-0, but McCarthy can't throw the ball downfield. The stuff with the Ohio State side is, yes, it's 11-0, but it's not a peak vintage Ohio State team. It's it's sort of like a B+ Ohio State team. You said you think both teams are great. I mean, what's your sort of take on how these teams measure up? Because the Michigan strength of schedule has been, kind of hit on a lot, and their non-con was sort of a joke. Everyone understands that. Do you look at these two teams as two great teams? Or are they kind of teams that have sort of squeaked by? I mean, in the context of these two great programs, how impactful is this game, and how great are these teams actually?
I think this is really when we get to see how great they really are. I would call both these teams great teams. I mean, you're 11-0 for a reason. No matter who you're playing, like, you can only play who they have on the schedule. It's not the players' fault, coaches, anybody else's. But when you try to judge them compared to like the handful of teams you feel like could be the national champion, that's the different story. So I think we'll get to see a glimpse here this Saturday when these guys take each other on, to see, like, it could be somewhat lopsided. I don't see that happening, or it could be a super hard fought battle that comes down to the wire. And I think then no matter who wins, people could look at it at least nationally and think, okay, we feel like both these teams are very, very good football teams. One team had to win today. It could be one of those things, but you never really know, though, until you get into bowl games and now with the college football playoffs, if you really do stack up with, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee as of late. Well, not as much right now. And all those like 7 to 10 teams that I think people talk about every single year, that we always kind of put them up in the front. Like, hey, one of these teams is going to win it all this year.
Yeah, the Brett Bielema strategy with Illinois last week was kind of interesting, and they had them. I mean, they they let him off the hook a little bit there at the end, but that's a different story. But the Bielema approach seemed to be the best we can. We're going to limit the run. Now, obviously, Blake Corum exits that game. Donovan Edwards wasn't playing. Michigan had a number of injuries, as Ohio State has had. We could talk about that later. But I just think the strategy seems to be to beat Michigan. It's sort of a layman's way of putting it, and you may roll your eyes, but kind of the stack the box thing. Just don't let the running game beat you to death. McCarthy missed multiple wide open, 10-yard kind of basic Big Ten D1 quarterback throws. Do you view that as, I mean, you're a defensive savant. Like, if you're going into this game, if you're game planning, doesn't it have to be, we're not going to get this just ground into dust on the ground game, and you have to make McCarthy beat you over the top?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that happens at every level of football where if you feel like, hey, what's their strength? Okay, we feel like their strength is running the ball. We're not going to let this, well, we're going to do everything we can to not let them physically like overpower us and run the ball on us. And we're going to make this quarterback prove that he can beat us through the air with his arm. That happens a lot in the NFL and in college all the time, where the defense will have a plan on what you want to do. Now, if you can execute it, that's another story. A lot of times quarterbacks, sometimes, they all of a sudden the play action game could get going. We don't know how McCarthy's going to feel Saturday. Sometimes I think guys wake up feeling better some days than others. But yeah, Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, came in this year to Ohio State, has really turned like the whole thing around. I feel like the defense, people feel very confident in what the defense can do. Now they gave a bunch of points to Maryland. They understand that, but I feel like the big plays that they make and the physicality they have up front, people feel good with Ohio State defensively, how they match up. But here we go. Everything you've done leading up to this point, yeah, it's great. But if you go out and lay an egg Saturday, none of it matters. Like, that's how it is. That's why this game means so much. That's why it's so fun to play in. So when the stakes are high, let's see who really has it.
When I was in college, I wouldn't say friends. I was friendly with Ohio State quarterback Justin Zwick. I'm sure you had a little bit of an overlap there. I'm sure you know Justin well, and he was a starter there for a few games. He told me when you lose to Michigan, it's a hangdog look there. It's something that really weighs on guys tenfold over any other loss on the schedule. You went 3-1 in your career when you were at Ohio State against Michigan. So I mean, that's pretty much ownage at that point. I mean, winning 3 out of 4. But the one that you lost in 2003, how does that weigh on you? Do you agree with sort of what Justin Zwick was saying about I mean, it should go without saying, but he said it's like 10 times worse. It's a depressed feeling on campus coming back. And what was your experience, with the one loss there? How much does it weigh on you?
It absolutely weighs on you. Yeah, that was my sophomore year. We went to Michigan, and man, they played great. Chris Perry was running all over the place. I think Navarre was the quarterback. Like, they had a lot of physical guys. Their offensive line was very good, and they played very well, and they beat us. And yeah, it still sucks. What do you mean? I mean, of course it means more than other games and other losses you may have, and it sticks with you longer. Yeah, I'm 3-1 against Michigan. I wish I was 4-0. I should be, I feel like, but they beat us. So yeah, it's definitely something about it. Maybe also I'm from Ohio, grew up about an hour and a half from Columbus. I kind of had an idea of what this rivalry was like, but until I got there and got on campus, I had no idea really what the rivalry was. And then I played for Jim Tressel, and he did an awesome job all week, like every single day, of teaching us the history and everything about the rivalry and why the game is so special and what it means so much. So I didn't really truly know what the game meant, I think, until I got there on campus for the first time and got to take part in it my freshman year.
So, I mean, you win 3 out of 4, and that aforementioned loss in 2003, at the time, it wasn't that crazy really to lose to Michigan. It was sort of a back and forth. It was Michigan's the year they beat you, and the one time they did, it was their 6th win in the last 10 years. So at that point, it was still kind of tit for tat. Michigan sort of owned the 90s, and then it was starting to flow back a little bit, but it was still pretty evenly matched. Last year, to me, felt a lot different. Losing to Michigan in 2021 hits differently, as the kids say, than it would have been in 2003. In 2003, you almost expect it to be kind of a coin toss in that game. Last year, Michigan had lost 8 straight. I think it was, 15 straight if you exclude the Luke Fickell interim year, which it counts, but I mean, exclude the Fickell year, it's 15 straight. Do you think the burden is extra heavy on these Ohio State players who already have what for this program has become a rare loss on their resume in this rivalry. Do you think it's extra heavy this year, even more so than your average year, to avenge last year and not lose gulp 2 in a row, which is unheard of in these kids' lifetimes in this rivalry?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit on that. I've thought of that before too, because I talked to some younger guys that came after me and they're like, "Oh, what's your record against Ohio State?" I'm like, "Oh, 3-1, man." And some of these guys are 4-0, 5-0 that have been there, with COVID years. I don't know what you can be there 6, 7 years now, I feel like. But that's just all they know is winning this game. And I know from when I was like in high school watching it and growing up middle school, and then when I was there, you're right. It was more of like a coin flip where we weren't Ohio State wasn't expected, wasn't favored every single time we played, I feel like. So yeah, there's probably definitely some more on the shoulders of those guys at Ohio State right now because they lost a tough one last year, and to think that they could do that 2 years in a row, yeah, that would be a huge thing for them to deal with. And I think also another like springboard for the Michigan program and what they could do. Like that would be a giant confidence booster and just rally the troops, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best sports books ever written was Friday Night Lights, which they had a semi-fictionalized movie about and then a later TV series. But the book is actually biographical, and it talks about how these kids are at the local diner and people are coming up to them left and right. Now, these are high school kids, not college, but coming up to them left and right, asking them about a loss from 2 years ago and how could you let that happen? And does that stuff seem to happen in Columbus? Because that's Justin was telling me now that's Zwick almost like 15 years ago now. But like he said, that's what happens. Like people will come up to you and be like, "Hey, what happened last year?" You know, is that something that kind of happens like when you're at Subway as a college kid up there?
Yeah, it definitely can. I mean, people are cool and nice and polite and everything, but it affects them. I mean, I have family members like that are the most diehard Ohio State fans. They were before I ever went there, and they will continue to be forever. And it's an emotional situation. I remember we won my senior day, my senior year, we played Northwestern for the last home game of the year, and I remember my uncle, who was a diehard fan, like hugging me and crying on my driveway of my college house, telling me how awesome it was and how he was so excited that he had to come to these games when I was playing and all this stuff. So like it means a lot to a lot of people around here. So yeah, they might have some questions. I think it's easier for people now, maybe if they see an ex player, someone like me who's been out for a while, they go, "Oh, well, so what do you think, like whatever happens the previous game? What do you think they're gonna do with this guy and that guy? And what's going on with the defense?" And they always like want to ask me what I would do to fix them. I'm like, I don't know. Those guys get paid a ton of money up there. They're great coaches. They're undefeated this season for a reason. So I just trust them. They're gonna figure it out. Let's just watch and enjoy.
So you mentioned great coaches. Let's talk about great coaches and whether or not they're great. And this is an honest question regarding Ryan Day and his legacy coming into this game. Look, I mean, no one game defines anybody. And we've had this sort of fork in the road moments here in Michigan with Jim Harbaugh like 100 times, and he's been buried and then come back. So I don't want to overstate it, but it does seem like a very important game for Ryan Day at an outsized scale. Now, much ado was made about his comments in the 2020 offseason going into what became the sort of funky COVID season. Ben, if you can throw that quote up and we'll kind of jump off from there. So this is prior to the 2020 season. Ryan Day comes out and says, Michigan better hope for a mercy rule because we are going to hang 100 on them. Now, I think that was said in private to his team, but it was later confirmed that he said that. And we all know what happened. The 2020 game got canceled. We'll get to that in a second. But the first game played after that, Michigan better be careful, we're going to hang 100 on them, was the game last year, 2021. Obviously, Michigan is triumphant in that game. They asked Jim Harbaugh, "Hey, do you have a little extra motivation from what Ryan Day said with the 100 points thing?" Ben, throw up Jim Harbaugh's response. Quote, "Let's move on with humble hearts and take the high road. People said stuff that spurred us, sure. Sometimes people think that they're standing on third base and they think they hit a triple, but they didn't." That's Harbaugh in November 21, right after that triumph over Ohio State. So I do love the let's have humble hearts thing, by the way, born on third base, think they hit a triple thing. That aside, it's a really important game for Ryan Day because if he loses this game on Saturday, he's now 2-2 in a rivalry that this program has completely owned. And that sort of notion of, wow, maybe he was just kind of drifting along on Urban Meyer's momentum. What's your take on Ryan Day? Do you feel this has an outsized importance to him specifically?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does. He understands the history and the tradition and all that it means. And that's if you're coaching at Ohio State, you got to beat Michigan. You can beat everybody else, but if you don't beat Michigan, you're gonna get fired. I mean, John Cooper talks about it. John Cooper had a great record, and then he just didn't beat Michigan enough times, and boom, he's booted. Coach Tressel comes in his first year, he beats Michigan in a game at Michigan that people didn't really expect him to win. That was huge, and that kind of springboarded forward everything else that he did. But Ryan Day, for sure. I think, first off, I think it's awesome. I think the quotes going back and forth with coaches, it's a rivalry. Yeah, there should be some animosity. There should be some bulletin board material. I don't mind that. And I think Ryan Day he's like a supremely confident guy that is laser focused and wants to win really, really bad. And that's what I see when I watch the games. If I go to the games, I can watch him on the sidelines and see like this guy, he has a plan and he's going to stick with it. And his players are bought in. But with that being said, yes, he knows this is a game that 2-2 against Michigan doesn't sound very good, does it? If you're the head coach, Ryan Day, and you definitely want to make sure that you're doing things that not only like get the program going the right direction, but you're right, like separate him from Urban Meyer, which I think he is. I think he's already on his own. He's done a great job. He really has, honestly. Like I think the dude is awesome. But I think he absolutely knows the importance of this game. And 3-1 sounds a lot better than 2-2. I think he would definitely agree.
And my buddy Evan is a huge Ohio State fan, born and raised here. His uncle went there, not even his dad. I don't know how he landed on becoming a big Buckeye fan, but he said he is done with Ryan Day if they lose. Now, I think that's a little bit insane, but that does seem to be sort of a common thing where it's like, I don't think he'll be soon forgiven for losing this game, whether it's by 1 point or 100 points. I think he has to win. I think they will win. Before we get to your prediction and then we'll wrap, I want to get your opinion on the 2020 thing, and we touched on it briefly. There's the theory going on, certainly the Michigan State fans crowing from the sidelines, which we were doing. We're saying that Michigan is a hoax and it was a ducking, whatever. Ben, can you roll that media just to get the context going, and then we're going to place some framing around this.
Now it comes down to they were going to play Michigan State Saturday. I still think Michigan waves the white flag, potentially avoids playing Ohio State next week. And then, David, they'll potentially get a game on the 19th. They could be sitting there with 6 games. And Michigan, is that fair, David? Michigan could opt out basically of that game and keep Ohio State out of 6 games to qualify for the Big Ten championship.
Following breaking news here on SportsCenter, not the news that Ohio State wanted. Michigan has canceled its game against Ohio State this Saturday due to positive COVID-19 cases and student athletes in quarantine in the Wolverines program.
It looks right. Herbie's right. He's 100% correct. You white flagged it.
I again, until we see the data, I don't know that you can say that.
This is the Michigan-Ohio State game. They just canceled it.
Yeah.
They're using a pandemic as a shield.
Let's get the AJ perspective. Did Michigan duck Ohio State in 2020?
Well, I don't know what that host said. If we don't see, we need to see the data. Did anything come out after this game happened that we saw they had a bunch of people infected, or what happened?
Well, I don't know that they ever released the numbers. They did say that they had too many cases. I don't think we ever got that number. I'm not 100% sure.
What do you think? What do you think happened, Justin?
Okay. Do I think they faked COVID cases? No, I don't think that happened. I think if Michigan is sitting undefeated or 4-1 or whatever it would have been in that weird year, and they're playing to go to Indy, I think they're on the field. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, what a weird situation. I didn't forget that happened, but just to think that was rewind a little bit and that was the case. I don't know. I don't think they faked anything. I don't know what they did or what happened, but yeah, what a weird deal. And when was it week of? Wasn't it like 3 or 4 days before the game? When did they finally cancel?
Yeah, it was like that week. I don't know. Maybe it was the Monday before the game or something, but it was not like 2 weeks in advance.
I get it. Hey, if I felt like, if you feel like you didn't stack up, or you're like, hey man, this could be a long day for us. And which I'm not saying Harbaugh thought that, but if I thought that, it'd be very tempting to find a way to not play the game if I felt like my team just wasn't ready.
That was a terrible Michigan team. The point spread, I mean, not that that's everything, but the point spread was like 31 or 32 and trending up before the game got canceled. Some people thought it might settle in around 35.
Wow.
I mean, that was a very good Ohio State team. The Michigan team, Michigan State was absolutely terrible that year. It was Mel Tucker's first year. He had "Hi, my name is" stickers on everyone's jerseys. He didn't know who anyone was. He was there for 5 minutes, and State dominated them. They were horrible. I don't think they faked cases, but I think they're on the field if they're playing for something. I will always believe that. You can't prove that, and people are going to look at it through their own lens. But yeah, a little fishy to me. All right, so I know you got to get out of here. Let's finish here. What actually happens on Saturday, AJ? What happens? Can you please win for me?
Man. So I'm going to go to the game, taking all my kids. We're going to go check it out. It should be an unbelievable atmosphere. I feel like Ohio State's defense, I feel like they find Michigan's offense, they're very physical. They can put up points. I feel like consistently for 4 quarters, Ohio State's defense is going to find a way to make big stops when they need to, hopefully get a couple turnovers. I think CJ Stroud and the boys hopefully have a nice solid running attack and air it out when they can, when it's open downfield. And I don't know if you want to give me, I haven't thought about a score. Do you want me to give you a score prediction?
100% I got to get a score out of you.
Yeah, okay. I'd say let's go 28-14 Ohio State.
Oh, we'll take that. A little bit lower scoring. We'll see. We'll see how the weather is.
What is the weather? Is it going to rain a little bit? It's not going to be freezing. Like I saw the high was 50, which is great for this time of year.
Yeah, I agree. I saw like a 20% chance of rain. I haven't checked since Sunday though. That was a big look ahead. I mean, you're 6 days ahead, but
yeah,
it's not supposed to be frigid cold. So
shouldn't be as long as it's not crazy windy like the Ohio State played Northwestern at 40-mile-an-hour gust or whatever. As long as it's not that and everything like isn't hindered and they can still throw the ball decent. Yeah, I like Ohio State for sure.
Yeah, well, I hope so. My fingers are crossed. I will be wearing my red and green. I'm going to be like, your wife with like the half.
There you go.
Yeah. So I appreciate your time. Have fun on Saturday and send my love to Laura. You have a great family, man. They're such great kids and fun kids. And Laura, I actually tried to hire her for some interior design work in our studio. And she said like, yeah, we're booking out to like 2032 or something. So
yep, she's trying to figure that out and get the pipeline situated right now with a lot of different jobs on the hook at some point. But yeah, come back, reach back out. She'll figure what if you need something else done. She'll be available.
She's the best. Yeah, there's a reason there's a waiting list. Yeah, she's a super talented. So appreciate you, AJ. I know you're a busy guy, and the continued success to you. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you very much, man. Good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. AJ Hawk, Ohio State legend. Off the curb, Justin Spiro. Appreciate you. Rock Chalk Buckeye Hawk on Saturday. Let's get it done.
Bam.